At 13 years old, Justin Bieber should have been doing his homework, playing video games, or maybe just figuring out how to survive puberty. Instead, he was being auctioned off to the highest bidder in the music industry. He was discovered, but not in the magical fairy tale way we like to imagine. He was targeted. A few YouTube videos, raw, authentic, just a kid singing in a staircase, sparked the attention of Scooter Braun, a powerful industry manager who had a sharp eye not just for talent, but for opportunity. Justin wasn't just a gifted vocalist, he was marketable. What followed was a whirlwind, a fast-tracked fame train with no brakes and no exit signs. Within months, he was flown to Atlanta, introduced to Usher, signed to Raymond Braun Media Group, and then to Island Records. Suddenly, this 13-year-old kid from Stratford, Ontario was no longer Justin. He was Justin Bieber, a brand, a product, a corporate investment. And like any investment, the goal wasn't his well-being. It was profit. From the outside, it looked like a dream. Sold-out arenas, global tours, viral videos, and hit singles one after another. Baby had every teenager in the world screaming. Justin was everywhere, his face on magazine covers, dolls, lunchboxes, nail polish, you name it. But underneath the surface, the foundation was cracking. Justin wasn't making decisions, others were. What to wear, what to say, what to post, what to sing. His schedule was packed by adults who had financial stakes in his performance, and any sign of hesitation was brushed off as immaturity. He was told to smile, to be grateful, to keep going. The system made him believe that pushing himself past the brink was normal. By the time he turned 18, the legal age of adulthood, he had lived more life than most people do by 40, but had no understanding of the business machine that was exploiting him. Despite being the face of a multi-million-dollar empire, he had no control over it. From the outside, it looked like Justin had the perfect support system. Big names, big deals, big cosigns. But dig a little deeper and you'll see something far more insidious. The people guiding him weren't just mentors. They were power brokers. And in Hollywood, power is rarely shared without strings attached. Take Diddy, for instance, a mogul known for building stars and in equal parts controlling them. Reports from Justin's early years suggested Diddy wanted to show him the ropes. That sounds generous, even noble. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. What exactly does a teenage boy need to learn from a man who built his empire through ruthless contracts and celebrity manipulation? There's footage, some now chilling in hindsight, of Justin being paraded around parties at an age where he wasn't even legally allowed to be in the room, surrounded by adults twice his age, drinking, smoking, and pushing the boundaries of what any teenager should be exposed to. It wasn't mentorship, it was indoctrination. A crash course in how the industry operates without regard for emotional or psychological readiness. And it wasn't just Diddy. The entire ecosystem around Justin thrived on his naivety. He was told these connections were essential, that these people were family, that the late-night meetings, the extravagant parties, the unsupervised trips, all of it was just part of the lifestyle. But in truth, it blurred every line between guidance and grooming. Because when you look closely, mentorship in the entertainment world often has less to do with helping young talent grow and more to do with shaping them into something profitable. Strip away their innocence, shape their image, isolate them from their roots, and make sure they trust only you. That's not guidance, that's control. And for Justin, it meant that every adult in the room, every mentor, every manager, every friend, had something to gain from keeping him dependent, impressionable, and in constant need of direction. By the time Justin Bieber turned 18, he had already headlined world tours, shattered streaming records, and sold millions of albums. Forbes estimated his annual income in the tens of millions. To the public, he was rich beyond belief. A teenage mogul with Ferraris, mansions, and a lifestyle most adults couldn't even fantasize about. But beneath the surface, the math didn't add up. Despite the headlines boasting his 9-figure net worth, Justin's finances were in trouble. Because here's the dirty little secret of the music industry. Gross income doesn't mean actual wealth. For every dollar that came in, layers of agents, managers, lawyers, publicists, stylists, tour crews, and record labels took their cut, and not small ones. Some sources claimed he was making as little as 12 cents on the dollar after everyone else got paid. But it goes even deeper. When Justin was a minor, contracts were often signed on his behalf, and many of those early deals locked him into long-term obligations where he fronted the risk, but the corporations reaped the reward. He'd pay for the production of his albums, the tours, the promotions, and if the numbers didn't hit expectations, the debt fell on him. It's not just unethical, it's strategic. These contracts are designed to be confusing, a maze of percentages, clauses, and revenue splits that no teenager, no matter how famous, could truly understand. And if he dared to question it, he'd be told to stay in his lane, to trust the process, to focus on the music. So while the world saw a teen living like royalty, behind closed doors, Justin was hemorrhaging control and money, stuck in a system where the more he worked, the more indebted he became. And the most devastating part? He didn't even realize how bad it was until years later. You can only stretch a person so far before something snaps. And in Justin Bieber's case, the snapping wasn't sudden. It was slow, creeping, and painfully public. The world watched him unravel in real time, but few understood that what looked like rebellion was actually resistance. The last, desperate attempt to claw back control in a life that hadn't been his for years. By the time he was 19, Justin had been working non-stop for nearly a decade. That's 10 years of cameras in his face, sleepless tours, suffocating contracts, and the kind of attention that would drive even the most stable adult to a breaking point, let alone a teenager still trying to figure out who he was. His schedule was merciless. In interviews, he confessed to going entire days without sleep, flying to multiple cities in 24 hours, and performing with fevers, migraines, and emotional exhaustion. His physical health began to fail, but the industry didn't hit pause. Instead, they pushed harder. After all, the tickets were sold, the crew was hired, and the money machine was already in motion. And that's where it gets dark. Bieber began self-medicating, spiraling into substance use not out of recklessness, but out of survival. He admitted to using heavy drugs just to get through the day, to numb himself from the pressure, the noise, and the loneliness. He wasn't partying for fun. He was escaping a prison with no walls but millions of invisible expectations. Eventually, the symptoms couldn't be masked anymore. He developed a form of chronic anxiety so severe it left him physically paralyzed at times. He was later diagnosed with Lyme disease and Epstein-Barr, both of which had gone untreated for too long because his symptoms were brushed off as burnout. His nervous system was in a constant state of overdrive. And still, the show went on. He started canceling appearances, breaking down on stage, pushing back against his handlers. He lashed out, cried in public, disappeared for days, and was crucified by the media every time. Paparazzi chased him. Headlines branded him as spoiled, unhinged, and troubled. But no one asked the right question: what happened to this kid? Because by then, he wasn't a kid anymore. He was a shell of one. This isn't just the fallout of one star pushed too far, it's the mold. Justin Bieber's story fits a dangerous pattern that Hollywood has followed for decades, almost like a playbook. Step 1. Find someone young, preferably poor or unknown, with raw talent and a look that sells. Step 2. Promise them everything. And Step 3. Own them. The industry doesn't just create stars, it manufactures dependence. A child with no business experience surrounded by handlers becomes reliant on adults who frame exploitation as mentorship. And by the time the artist realizes they're trapped, they're too big to slow down, too famous to walk away quietly, and too emotionally wrecked to fight back. And that's where the real damage starts. We've seen this script play out again and again. Britney Spears losing her autonomy in a conservatorship while her handlers collected checks. Lindsay Lohan turned into a punchline while media outlets made millions off her downfall. Demi Lovato hospitalized, then asked to perform like nothing happened. These aren't personal failures, they're industry outcomes. Because when young artists crash, the system doesn't see pain, it sees content. Even the mental breakdowns are monetized. Front-page exclusives, rehab specials, interviews that promise the truth, but deliver just enough vulnerability to keep the public watching. These kids become living clickbait. Their worst moments are licensed and distributed like products. And the most terrifying part? No one's really held accountable. The contracts are airtight, the image is controlled, the brand goes on even if the person behind it crumbles. So if you're asking, how did this happen to Justin? The better question is, how hasn't it happened to more of them already? Justin eventually began pulling away. He got married, found faith, slowed down, and for the first time in years, started saying no. No to touring, no to being used, no to pretending. It wasn't a flashy comeback. It was quiet, intentional, and it made people uncomfortable because a healed artist isn't as profitable as a broken one. But in that silence, Justin reclaimed something he'd lost long ago: himself. This isn't just about celebrity gossip. It's about the systems we support with our views, our clicks, our dollars. It's about questioning why we reward the destruction of young people in the name of entertainment. Justin Bieber survived, but barely. Others didn't. And if we keep pretending this is just how the industry works, then we're complicit in letting it continue. So the next time you see a young star rise overnight, remember, there's a cost behind the curtain, and it's almost never worth it. If this made you see fame differently, help us get this story out there. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and check the description for more deep dives into the untold stories of fame and power. And remember, sometimes survival is the most rebellious act of all.